In the last 2 seasons, the golden perch fishery in Eildon has really come of age. It has given every Victorian angler a taste of what those in southeast Queensland and New South Wales have been taking for granted for years.
Well done, Lenny.
Thanks, pal.
Better still, Eildon is only an hour's drive from the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. This makes it one of Melbourne's best fisheries that can be enjoyed for a single day's fishing. We're just at the start of the Delatite Arm. It's one of my favourite banks to leave the boat a bit of a cast from shore. I have been using a deception, but because these banks have got so flooded, lake levels come up almost 15% in a month. I've just changed over to a gold jackal. Keep it up off the bottom and away from this, not so much aquatic weed, it's more flooded grasses and bushes, which, hey, is good. I would expect there to be some goldens moving around these shores. You can retrieve the jackal just a little bit quicker if you want to. A lot of people are just trolling jackals at the moment, catching a lot of fish, just trolling probably 50 metres following the bank. So I sort of figure just going to try the same thing here, and if that's no good, we'll move on. We'll move right up the Delatite proper. Because the water's come up so quickly, in just a month, we'll be able to reach a lot of new ground that probably hasn't been fished now for about 5 years. Water's probably flooded at least a further 2 or 3 kilometres of ground up in the top of the Delatite here, so we'll just see what we can do up there as well. Open up a lot more possibilities.
Fish.
Got a yellow there, Len?
Yeah, just a little yellow, yeah.
Oh, good.
I'm on the
See, it did produce. You got a oh, you changed over to jackal too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
grab this one for you.
thanks, mate. That was again right on the edge here, Bill.
Just out. It was the same before. Just out of reach of that
Yeah.
5 metre line. Yeah, it's not a big fish. Let's pull him in here. It's only just barely hooked too. There's a typical golden from Eildon. There's a nice little fish.
Yeah, happy with him.
Good on you.
Yeah.
He's taking that jackal. Now you were saying you like this is a redfin colour.
Yeah, imitation of
good.
redfin, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of redfin that
Yeah.
size in this lake.
They're very pale fish in here too, mainly due to the water colour.
Yep.
But they're slow growing. They'll live to 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, right.
So I believe.
Yep.
I'm no expert, but that's what I'm told. And you know, at probably about 10 years, they're going to be right up there in the size scale of things. So
Yeah, this fishery can only get better.
yeah. One thing is handy to be aware of with golden perch when you're handling them, because we're going to let this fellow go in a minute. You can comfort lift them, but
Just be aware of them and those spikes.
yep,
And then
on their dorsal they're quite spiky here, and they've on their
gill raker.
on their gill raker they've got quite a cutting edge in there as well. And down on the anal fin, they'll certainly cut you up. But we'll get the lure out of this fish and get him back in the water. Good. In November, the lake is usually at its peak, and the golden perch fishing, especially on lures, is always at its best then. Yep.
Come on, Billy.
Yep.
Excellent. Let's get my lure out of the way.
Not a bad fish.
I'll just wind my line in.
Sure. Now going down to that 8-pound lighter leader has certainly helped.
Well,
Yeah, it's about,
instant results.
yeah. Now this is only a small fish, but there's a big school of them along this bank. And as you can see, the wash in the background, it's washing up on the bank. Normally I'd fish this bank from shore, but what we've elected to do today is just drift down the boat with the electric and just cast parallel to the shore. It's another one of these little school fish that are obviously hung up on this bank. Just comfort lift him out. They're all going to be about the same size. They're all on this windward shore here. It's quite blowing up quite heavily now. But one thing you will find in Eildon and any lake that's full of golden perch is if you find a school, they're roughly going to be all the same size.
Same size, yeah.
A lot of these fish are all about this size. It's probably, I don't know, half a kilo or 3/4 of a kilo. Not a big fish. Okay, we'll let this guy go. As you can see, we're right in, oh, you can see how milky the water is here. It's been stirred up. There we go. Really been stirred up by this wave action. So the best option on this long shore down here is just get about 20 metres offshore in the boat, drift down with the electric and cast bibless minnows in just to the outside of all this silt. Fish are just working their way in along here. Now these boats that have been trolling up and down the shore here have been catching a few Goldens. I just thought I'd try something a bit different. So I just pulled the boat up on the shore. I've just wandered down to where I reckon they've been having most of the hits. I'm just going to fish a suspending diving minnow, in this case a deception. Just cast it out. Crank it down to about 3 to 4 metres and then slow it right down. See if we can't entice a fish or two that way, just for something a little bit different. As you can see, rod tip to the water and slow that retrieve right down. They'll probably hit it as it gets very close to the shore too. They just hate it getting away. Only problem with that is you get a lot of missed strikes. Had a couple of hits already actually. And unlike most fishing situations where you quite often will get your strike in the first 10% of the retrieve, when you're fishing like this for golden perch from the bank, I reckon you get them in the last 15%, sometimes last 10% of your retrieve, right against the bank. Makes for hard hookups though. They'll quite often zero in on it and just slash at it, only half hook it up. So you'll miss a few, but you'll have a bit of fun. Now this guy took it in that last 10%, just coming up the bank. Not a big fish. It's actually held onto that one. We've lost a couple before then, they just couldn't stick onto them. But he's about, I would say, peas in a pod. The other couple of fish that got off before were about that size as well. They're obviously just schooled up on something out here. I'd say there's a drowned snag out here, and there's a nice school of them. Boy, these fish are fit. Now, I wouldn't say this is a monster, but it's certainly well over a kilo. It's good. Nice looking golden. We'll just slip in here and just get in the water with him. Boy, oh boy. Best fight to date. He's only just lip hooked too. Just lip hooked. That's the problem when you're getting them on the bank. They just slash into the side. There's a nice specimen. Get him up here. Oh, just comfort lift him up. He's quite a nice specimen. Probably 1.5 kilos, this guy. Let's bring him down here. Have a look at that. What a lovely golden from the bank. And fit as anything, took me all over the place. A bit on my tackle for golden perch fishing in Lake Eildon. Gel spun or superline is paramount, and I only use 6 pound for my threadline fishing. So when I'm fishing something like a jackal or a bib lure, whether it be trolling or casting, again 6 pound gel spun, and usually 6 or 8 pound fluorocarbon leader, in this case 8 pound, and that's light, but the fish are really getting used to a lot of angling, and heavier leaders, I think 10 kilo leader is just getting a little bit heavy for a lot of golden perch fishing in Eildon. So if you can, run a good quality 8 pound mono, maybe 10 pound leader. One thing that a lot of anglers have a lot of trouble with is actually joining your leader to your gel spun. And I'm just going to show you a new knot that a mate of mine, Kane Dysart from Darwin, showed me. It's a great knot. It's relatively easy to tie, and most importantly, it doesn't degrade with casts. So in other words, as you cast all day, the shape of the knot doesn't really get knocked too much on the runners, so it holds its breaking strain throughout the cast during the day. You can also wind the knot onto your reel. It's not bulky, and it works with bait casters as well. Something like an Albright will degrade with casting and eventually let go. I really don't recommend that you use an Albright knot to join your leader, whether it be mono or fluorocarbon, to your main line. I'll just show you quickly how to tie this knot that Kane showed me. It's a real beauty. Okay, I've got a bit of 8 pound leader here, Japanese leader. It's sort of the new style of leader. And what you do is you just take your leader, form a loop, and just tie a double granny knot. So you simply tie a double granny knot and then pull on it, and you'll see it'll loop over and form a rudimentary figure of 8. What you're going to do now is take your gel spun, and in this case it's some 6 pound gel spun, so it's pretty fine, and you've got to thread the gel spun through the first part of the 8 and then back down through the second part, like so. So you've got your gel spun coming along through the first loop in the 8, back through the second loop in the 8. Okay? And then you just pull a bit of gel spun through like so. Now at this point in time, you don't want to pull the figure of 8 too tight, but you can just give it a light pull to hold the gel spun. And then what you're going to do is simply form a loop in the gel spun along the leader, like so, and then wrap the gel spun tag along the leader and the section of the gel spun that has formed your loop. And you go up about 10 or 12 times up and away from the 8 loop, like so. And now what we're going to do is simply pull up that loop knot that we've formed with the gel spun by holding the tag end of the gel spun and the main line of the gel spun, and you can see this gel spun knot forming perfectly up the line. So now you've got the knot in your gel spun here and your figure of 8 down here, and you just pull the 2 up just lightly till they meet, like so. From there, you just pull up on your 8 loop, on your leader, tag of your leader and your mono, and then you take the leader in your left hand and the gel spun in your right hand, and then pull up on the knot. And there you have it. That is a good knot. The lay of the knot allows it to run through the runners on the cast without knocking it around at all, so it'll last hundreds of casts during the day. And I can guarantee you, unlike an Albright, which will let go through casting, repetitive casting through the runners, this won't. And it's a strong knot, highly recommended. Then we can just trim it. And it's important to have braid scissors. And there you have it. That is a good knot. So there you have it. That's my light outfit, 6-pound braid, 7-foot soft plastic rod. I can use that from anything from small bibless minnows to soft plastics. I can even use it sometimes with a diving minnow like a deception shrimp. I'll have a slightly heavier outfit, in this case using it with a jackal, but again 6-pound braid, 8-pound leader, and again the cane dysart knot to tie that one off. When I go to a spinnerbait, I use obviously I use an overhead, up a little bit, 10-pound braid, in this case a spinnerbait here, and again in this case 12-pound leader and a cane dysart knot again, and that knot works fine, casting through the runners and through the level wind on the bait caster. Last thing I do though is with my big rod, I always have a bigger outfit for cod. You never know when you're gonna catch a cod. In this case here I've got a Mohawk from Mud-Eye Lures. Great lure, you can cast it, troll it, it'll catch cod just about anywhere in the country. Difference here though, I use, in this case it's a 40-pound leader, and I use a wind-on leader. This is actually, these new wind-on leaders are made by Jack Erskine up in Cairns. First time you can get wind-on leaders in 10 kilo, 15 kilo and 20 kilo breaking strains. And that's the perfect joint for gel spun. So I tie a double in my gel spun, a cat's paw splice or a bionic braid loop to the wind-on leader. So it's a Kevlar loop to the braid loop, and then attached to your, in this case, 15 kilo hard mono leader, ideal for cod. And that is a serious joint. That is really good. That's guaranteed 100% run off your reel smoothly during the cast, and it will never let you down. Great system. So there you have it, a snapshot on the golden perch fishery in Lake Eildon, one of Victoria's best freshwater fisheries. And just remember, if you want to catch a golden perch on a lure, remember the month of November.